Well, it was a good-sized village. It had 3 stores, a bank, mill, Rapidan Milling Company. It was a pretty good-sized village. A bank in Rapidan, post office, the whole works.
Wow.
And I lived there until I was 18 years old.
And what did your parents do? What did your dad do?
My father was a railroad man. He worked his whole life on a railroad and retired from a railroad, and my mother was just a housewife. Raised 4 of us.
What are some of your earliest childhood memories from growing up in Rapidan?
Mostly trying to stay out of trouble. I mean, Halloween tricks and stuff like that. I don't know whether we want to even get into that or not.
Definitely.
I did things that 40-some years later that I'd lock somebody up for. I will tell you one incident that I was a little ashamed of and tickled too. It was a boy down there that was shot down over Germany and was in prison camp over there for something like 18 months. He came back and lived in Rapidan. And on one Halloween night, a bunch of us younger hoodlums got some dynamite. And we went up 15, set it off a couple times, and we would come on back to Rapidan, about 10:30, quarter to 11, I think it was, and went out in the middle of a field, about probably 500 yards from where this boy lived, and set off 2 sticks, and it sounded like Rapidan just rocked. Well, the next night, we usually hung around the store, the general store down there. It stayed open till 9 o'clock at night. We all hung around him, and he came on up there. He said, I had this funniest feeling last night. I started laying in bed, dreamed that we were flying, and I heard this explosion. I rolled out of the bed, and I said, bail out, boys, bail out. And I felt real bad about it after I grew up enough to appreciate what we had done. But at that time, it was hilarious. And I can remember when President Roosevelt died, just as well as I can, because I was thumbing, had gotten over to Mitchell's. An old gentleman who lived there in Rapidan named Jack Tolliver. He came along in his car and picked me up, and they were talking about it on the radio at that time.
Did you see his funeral train come through?
I did. Yeah. I've seen an awful lot, Bill. I've been around the block a couple times. Yeah, I was at a distance. I saw it, but I saw it.
Wasn't there a story about an outhouse that you all blew up?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Tell that story.
That was down at Mitchell School. Yeah, we blew it up. Well, blew it out, whatever you want to call it. Then we had an old man there in Rapidan that always gave us a hard time. And one of the tricks we pulled on him, and this wasn't very destructive, he had a hedgerow, a bunch of hedges around his house, front door, and had one of these old pull chain lights. And we got a stray cat and tied twine string around his tail and tied it up to that light switch. And we got to the Baptist church in Orange, was right across from where this old man lived. And we got over there and would holler, hey, kitty, 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 and that cat would run this way and the light come on. Somebody back up here, there was 3 or 4 of us into it, called, and we like to worry that old man to death with that. But he was always after us for something we had done, and this, that, and the other. Well, I learned a real lesson as far as honesty is concerned. It was 3 of us, a man hired to thin his corn. Of course, you don't have to do that anymore. And I mean, he had a big field on the riverbank down there. And we went down, there was 3 of us. And it was hot weather, I'm telling you, it was stifling. And we thinned about 3 or 4 lines of corn around the field. And the river was a whole lot more inviting than that cornfield was, and we were swimming. So we went out about getting 10 cents an hour. We were high paid. We went on back after we told we'd finished. about 3 days. We made something like $3. I reckon we made $1 a day, something like that. Anyway, he went and looked at his field and went and told our respective fathers. And I'll let you know, we thinned corn for a week for nothing. So I learned that you don't get paid for something you don't do.
Where did you go to school?
Well, I started at Rapidan School, and they got rid of that, and in the 5th grade I went to Mitchell's. From 5th until I was a sophomore in I was a junior in high school. And they consolidated, and I graduated from Culpeper. Last year I went to Culpeper.
Yeah. How did you get to school?
We had a bus, school bus. you done triggered something else, Phil. we were going to Bishop School, a bunch of us boys had Rapidan, just plain devils. I mean, in fact, we should have been locked up, a whole bunch of us. They had an old school bus with a wooden floorboard in it, and it was cracked like that. One old boy I used to run around with, he's dead now. He went to state police, and when he died, he was captain of state police. So he was always good with cars and mechanic stuff. So they would pull up in the afternoon when the school buses all came in to pick up the kids. All the old drivers would get out, and talk to us, and I would crawl up on the buses and do anything you want to. Well, old JP, he decided we were going to fix that old man, because there was a couple of girls that lived about 2 miles from school that he was always playing up to, and hell, he was in his 70s, I reckon. He let them stand up over his shoulder and let them stir the bus. So we wired the accelerator up and put the wire back there through one of those cracks. Well, we started those Mitchell schools that day, and as soon as we got on the highway, man, we pulled that thing down. He had it in 2nd gear, and we went up through that just flying, and he couldn't get it out of camp because it was running too fast. Shit. He ran all the way to Rapidan before we could get it stopped, and the girls had to ride with him. The Rapidan was rather lively at that time. We had a baseball team. Of course, it was country ball. You played it out in boxing matches. We used to have boxing matches to make money for the ball club. We'd have boxing matches, well, a little earlier than what we were doing now, a little earlier, about February, March. Oh, yeah.
Did you box?
I did one in high school, yeah.
Really? Wow.
And I never went to Golden Gloves or anything like that, but yeah, I boxed.
And you played ball too?
Oh, yeah. Man, I played baseball. The last ball game I played was softball. I was 57 years old, right there in Orange. I played baseball. I played for Crozet. I played for Greenwood in this industrial league I had at the time. And then when I quit playing baseball, so a long time I played baseball and softball together. I mean, I'd play baseball on the weekends and softball in the week at night. Well, the reason I didn't play football, I didn't like it as well as I did baseball, and I had to thumb every night from practice from Culpeper to Rapidan. And I didn't want to do that in the middle of the winter and fall year. But when I was playing baseball, I had to thumb. We practiced every afternoon after school. And I had to thumb from Culpeper to Rapidan, which is 14 miles. Yeah, I played baseball for Lord. From the time I got out of high school, I played high school baseball, and I played baseball then until, like I say, I played the last game of softball I played when I was 57 and played that over at Porterville. Yeah. I played in the industrial league up in Charlottesville, softball for, well, from 56 to 58 when I went to work for the police department. Then I had to start working some at night, so I had to give it up. But yeah, I played baseball and softball together for years.
What position did you play?
First base. If you're left-handed and 6 foot tall, it ain't many other places you can play. This is outfield. And I played outfield in high school, but I wasn't fast enough.
But you were left-handed?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't want you to pitch.
Well, that's another story. God, Phil, we'd be here all day. Yeah, they wanted me to pitch. Page Higginbottom was managing the Ramblers, the Orange Ramblers. And he came around, I was working at People's Grocery at that time, and he came around, and I was up there on the platform one day, said he wanted to talk to me, and I was left-handed, and he wanted me to join the Ramblers. I told him, no, I didn't think it was. So then they got up a team, the Kentucky Flooring Company, and they wanted me to pitch. So we went to Louisa one day to play Louisa. And no outfield fences, but there was a house about 400 feet from home plate. And I wound up, they said it was going to be a duel of left-handers. The guy they had played semi-pro ball that was pitching. Well, the first time they had a third baseman they called Hot Dog. He was about 5'10" and broad as a house. Man, I laid what they call my fish ball in there. And the next thing I knew, somebody was over there looking up underneath the porch of that house, 450-something feet. So that was my days as pitching. I figured I'd play somewhere that I could play. But no, I played baseball like for years.
That just reminded me, your nickname was Fish. What?
Right.
How did you get that?
Because anytime you wanted to find me at home and I wasn't at home as a kid, I was in the river. Lord, we used to have a regular swimming hole down there. But then we had another one up there right under the railroad bridge. But that was the deep one up there. The one we had, the whole village used the one we had. Instead of going to a swimming pool, you'd go to Rapidan River, below the dam there.
Right.
So, but those were the days. The first time I went to court was over a car. You know, I told you about everybody used to hang around the store at night.
Yeah.
Well, there was a fellow in Rapidan that had a Model 8 Ford, and that thing run like a top. You could set your watch by it. And he thought more that thing he was thought of a new baby. So he came on over to the store one night like he always did and parked his car out there. There was, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us sitting around on the porch out there. And he went on in where the grown people were talking, the adults. Well, we went over and lifted the back end of that car up and stuck a piece of wood, a block under it, jacket wheel thing. And we said that if we'd gone on home, we never heard anything about it. But he came on about 9 o'clock when they closed the store up, and he was working for a fellow called Mr. Dennis. So he got in his car and started up, you know. I think it wouldn't move. He said, Mr. Dennis, my car ain't going bad. I almost said, must be my clutch. He said, I've tried my clutch, I turned my lights on, blow a horn, everything is working, but I can't move. Mr. Dennis said, if you take that block of wood, she would move all right. well, that was the first night. So the next night, here he come again over the store. Man, he was fit to be tied. He jumped up in my face, and of course I mouthed back at him, and he said, "Boy, I'm gonna hit you because you're 16 years old." Well, this old boy down that Rapidan, he was crippled in one arm like this, and he had the nickname of Kitten. And don't ask me why, because I can't tell you. But every Saturday night he'd go to town and fight the cops, and he'd come in with somebody, he'd put a blackjack up here. He'd fight a buzzsaw. Well, he jumped up in this fellow's face and he said, well, now I ain't 16 years old, so hit me. Well, the man, he won't go with him. So that got us all stirred up, and I had old Model 8 Ford too. And he had 2 of his children with him that night when he came over. So he started home, and I got in mine with two more boys and chased him. And when he got over to go to his house, I went around, I go to the lot where he lived. I cut around in front of him and choked out from, deliberately. He went down through a field just bouncing. Well, the next day, I was working at the A&P at that time during the summer, and it was right down on Main Street, where it used to be where the bank building is now, just below that. Porter Davis was sheriff, deputy sheriff then. Well, he came down with the A&P the next day or so with a warrant in his hand. Reckless driving and tampering with an automobile. Well, they had a judge then. That was before they had to be a lawyer. He was a banker. And he was a district judge. I lied in court, the only time I ever lied in court, never thinking that I would have a chance to be under oath. Well, I was under oath then, but that I'd be where I was. And I told the judge, I said, yes, sir, I said, I chased him, but see, when I went to cut around, my car choked out. I was lying like a buzzard. So I think we got charged $10 in cost. And one of the guys who was with us got scared and joined the Navy. They couldn't even find him. Stayed in the Navy for 12, 14 years. I was good friends with her brother, and he was one of the hoodlums that went. He was the one that went in the Navy, as a matter of fact. And I'd go out there and spend the night with him. He'd come spend the night with me, and we just sort of got together. And I was like old-fashioned. I think if I remember right, I asked my dad if I could date her, but we did. And that was a long time ago.
She was a Rapidan girl.
Yeah.
Now, you all had how many children?
Oh,
John,
Mark, Cynthia, the one that just called me, and Juanita, my oldest child.
What did the hooligan of Rapidan wind up becoming a police officer? How did that work?
By accident. By accident. Like I said, I drove a truck for 12 years at People's Grocery. And they sold out and didn't give us any notice, but a week's notice, that they were selling out to Merchant's Grocery. And I was sitting out there on the loading dock one evening, worried to death about how I was going to make it. And wife was pregnant with John, my oldest boy. And I didn't know how in the world I was going to have a job or anything else. After that, and I was sitting down at the grocery, parking the loading dock one evening. John Marvin came by there and stopped and asked me if I ever thought about being a policeman. I said, man, that's the last thing I ever thought of. Why? Well, he said, I'm going to have a man that's a friend that's going to quit. He said, I need an extra man to work on weekends. I said, well, I'll give it a try. And but it was the last thing I had in mind, but making a 33-year job of it. But anyway, I started on the weekend of the 4th of July. I was going to work on Friday night, Saturday night, the real lively times were. And then the next weekend I was going to work the same thing, so they had to outbid me. And somewhere I have a picture, but if you'd have seen it, you'd have thought, God help us if this is what we put our protection in the hands of. I had a uniform shirt, it was short sleeve shirts. Sleeves came down here. So I weighed 155 pounds when I went to work. And anyway, they had a pair of pants that came up just like mine sitting now. And a gun belt. Wyatt Earp could have worn it, I guess, if he'd have felt like it. But I went down the street with that. That was an ungodly sight after I saw a picture of it, until they got me outfitted. But I went to work on the 4th of July weekend and never left after that, because the Monday after that, the man he was thinking about quit and just hired me regular. And I've been there ever since. Now,
what kind of training did you get?
Now it's a whole lot different now, my friend.
Oh.
Well, if what they did then, they would do now, they would be sued. I worked with somebody for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then I worked shifts by myself, just like everybody else was doing. And I worked there, I reckon, from July until the following spring before I went to basic school. And basic school then was 2 weeks, and you were a certified policeman. The rest of it you learned the hard way. And nowadays, I don't know what it is now, 16, 18 weeks, I don't know what training time is now. But it's been 30 years since I've had anything to do with it.
I mean, did you ever have to testify in court prior to any
Oh,
kind of training?
Lord, yes.
How in the world did you handle that?
I don't know. Hell, I was cross-examined many times. I was working one evening, one Sunday afternoon, I think it was, and it was an alley there between the barber shop and where Stevens Jewelry used to be. They went back to Sherman's pool room back there. They'd sit back there and drink and carry on. Well, I was walking through there, and this old boy was lifting up a bottle. Well, I grabbed him, carried him on up to the car, wrote him a summons, and he said, can I have my bottle back? And I thought to myself, well, yeah, I don't want it, you can have it. So I gave it back to him. Well, he said, I'm going to plead guilty anyway. Well, that was the first mistake I made, was taking him at his word. Came up in court, and Judge Grady was sitting there. And I testified, I caught him drinking in public. And the old boy said, no, sir, I wasn't drinking. I hadn't had a drink. The judge asked me, he says, where's your evidence? I learned real quick. I said, I gave it back to him. And you talk about somebody feeling about yay high.
Now, John Baldwin had some police dogs that you didn't want to have anything to do with.
Oh, yes. Bill, the dogs weren't trained to start with. I mean, they go through a lot of training. These people got these real police dogs. They were beautiful animals. He built a great big, well, it wasn't a great big one, but a 3-dog thing down there. And I told him, no, hell no. If I run into something I couldn't take care of with a nightstick, I wasn't going to fool with no dog. And I quit on him. Absolutely. I came in there one morning, Bill, and one boy we had working there had a dog in the car. The dog had crapped in the back seat, peed all over the floor, and he didn't clean it up. Well, I called John. I told him, man, this is it. I'm not having it. My guy, they said, they ought to clean them out. And I said, well, you go ahead and tell them. So I told him, I said, I'm through. He will go and work this shift. You can't leave me like that. And I said, well, somebody will clean the car out. I'm not. And I didn't. I walked my whole shift that day, I think. So that next day was a Friday. And he always told us, I worked on Thursday's daylight shift because he was always off. That was his off day, Thursday. Well, Friday, I came in at 3 o'clock and it was raining. And I figured he done gone because he usually takes off. And Jim Davis was there by himself, so I came on in and got my raincoat out, everything. Started out, where you going? I said, go ahead and get on the street. Oh, come on in here, he said, I want to talk to you. Well, he talked me into staying, and later on I found out that a good thing he did, because I ended up with a job he had. There was one boy over there at Orange that I arrested 100 times, I reckon. But he'd fight you every time, and couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. I know they'd have to hit him and everything because you could just manhandle him. But I never had problems with a big man. But a little one, he's got to prove something. Got to prove something.
Did you ever get hurt?
Oh, I've been spit at and bit and everything else, but not seriously, huh? I guess the most serious injury I had was a broken toe. I caught a migrant who was in there one night. I got him drunk and stealing something else. And we were using the old jail back of the courthouse then. And I marched him around. I never will forget ice on the ground. And I had him by one hand, his arm, and I went to reach for the door. That little jackass broke away from it and jumped over that wall off where it comes up Madison Road. Well, I jumped up after him, and I tackled him when I went over that wall, but I hit my foot. But when I got home that night, I was working 3 to 11. I couldn't get my shoe off without my foot had swelled up like that.
Oh.
And the toe hurt so bad that for 3 nights I had to sleep. Donnie Hughes made me a frame to put the covers over to keep it off that toe. And that's the most serious injury I had in 33 years.
Wow.
But one of the biggest things I found out during the time I was there, that you treat most people halfway decent, you don't have that much problem with them. I had a minimum, I feel a minimum amount of trouble. Now, I don't think that I didn't have enough. I converted several people upside the head with a stick, because you don't see those. Now we would probably be ran out of town, but they told us in training school that don't ever give a man a second shot. And Lord, I had enough. I caught him with more than once. I had to use blackjack or stick on. But nowadays, even when I left, they had stopped going with a stick upside the head and hitting knees, that type stuff. But when somebody went head hunting me, I went head hunting with them. And we had a judge over there one time that he called me back in his office one time. I had a bunch of people who were resisting arrest, and the officer didn't have to use any force. So the judge called me back in his office, in his chambers, and he said, "Chief, I want to ask you something." He said, "All these people coming here resisting, why am I not seeing some knots on some heads?" I said, "Okay, Judge, that's fine with me." So, boy, I liked that old judge. He was a cop's judge if there was one.
Yeah.
And one time we had a hog get loose over there. You talk about a humor. And I had this Englishman. You remember Lynn Hill? Big blonde fellow. He was an Englishman, came over here. John Baldwin hired him. And he had worked over in England. But anyway, this hog must weigh 500 pounds. And I got a picture of that somewhere or another. I'm standing there like the Virginia seal with the, standing with one foot up on it. Anyway, we chased that hog one morning. It was Lynn and myself. Corralled that hog over on Nelson Street. And I said, "Now, Lynn, don't let him get by you. Oh, hell, me'll take care of him." Well, okay, me take care of him. So I was trying to herd the hog up. The old hog went, "Rrr, rrr," and started at Lynn. And he ran up on his, "Oh, God, blimey," he says. But didn't know they blocked. They didn't know they blocked. Well, we finally had to call the animal, well, they called him the Dogwood then, but now they call him animal control. Called him, and he shot a dart at him. Got the hog down, and we threw him on the back of somebody to pick him up, come by with us, and carried him back to where he belonged. We found out who owned the hog. But yeah, it was quite a few humorous ones too. Some guy escaped from jail up there and ran down Madison Road, way out there out of town, right after a thunderstorm. Everything wet, everything was just as wet. Well, GI was sheriff then. Oh, he may have been pulled as a deputy at that time, I don't know. He came by and asked me if I would ride out there with him, see if we could get that boy up. So I parked my police car down there just before we get to Reynolds. They had open spaces down there then. And got in the car with GI, and I said, "Lynn, now you stay here, and if you see that boy, give us a call." Okay? Well, we went, we couldn't find him, come back. Didn't see no Lynn Hill. I couldn't find him. Come on into the office, he's sitting back in the squad room smoking a cigarette and drinking a cup of coffee. I said, "What is that? Blue perfect hell are you doing, Lynn?" "Oh," he said, "me didn't get in the bushes down there, just had my pants clean and didn't want to get them wet."
Your son wanted me to ask you about George Lincoln Rockwell.
Oh, yeah.
When he
The
came
summer
to
of 1963.
63.
John Baldwin had a bad case of diverticulitis, and he was in the hospital all summer of '63. So they promoted me to acting chief, and gave me that title and a $25 raise a month. Went up in high clover, and I had to take over the department. So he got that place around that back where we always called it Leggett Lot. You know where I'm talking about. And came in there with his bully boys with the swastika bands and the brown shirts and this, that, and the other. Set up his speaker and what have you. And I had gone to two of the black leaders there in Orange and talked to them, and they were quite a help. And he came in there was every redneck from 5 counties in that lot. One, two of us worked, 3 of us were working. Kennan, Grant, Southern, and myself were working. And he lit into them. He called them everything that you could possibly through his mic. But we had one old boy, he sort of, I don't know whether he was tongue-tied or what, but he talked kind of funny like that. He ran up and, you get the hell out of here, we just finished whipping you all over in Europe. Well, I had to straighten him out, get him back. And finally, we had to disarm them. They had machine guns and stuff, and they were true Nazis, there's no question about it. And but we got them out, and I went back and told these 2 people that had helped me as far as the behavior of the blacks were concerned. They could not have acted better. They were called everything under God on God's green earth other than what they were. And we got by with a minimum number of arrests. I think we arrested 2 or 3 that night, I can't recall, of just people that were there. But we got him out. But yeah, that was and then on top of that, when all of this was over with, in September, I think it was, when John came back to work, they took my title away from it. They let me keep the $25 raise they gave me, but took my title away from it. I didn't get it back until 1972. Just Grant Southern, the one did. Now, he was working extra. He and I were patrolling out around 20. And here come this Volkswagen, I'm telling you the truth, it was flying. Well, we were down at about Dawson service station and pulled out. And down the road we went. So I finally pulled him over just before we got to the swimming pool down there. Got in, and I walked up to the left-hand side of the car, and I was near the end of the shift, about 2 o'clock, and I was about half irritated anyway. And let's say your operator's license and registration. Officer, I wasn't driving. This great big tall line. I said, crawl in that car, man. He said, I wasn't driving. I said, she was driving. I said, I've had one of these things today. I'd already given 1 ticket on that. I said, go there and let me see what you look like. Well, he got a big old long, lanky thing of university students. And sure enough, when he got out, he wasn't in the steering wheel. And Grant was on the other side of the car, hitting on top, hey, Melvin, hey, Melvin, hey, Melvin. And I didn't charge him. I figured the judge thinks I couldn't find something big as a steering wheel. Wasn't no way I could see a speedometer. So I give him a warning and sent him on down the road.
I also remember you telling me one time, you said you can always get somebody for improper equipment.
Oh, yeah.
And
And if you tell them tail light out, and they get out and look, well, I no, it just came back home when you walked.
But you never busted one, did you? Or did you?
Not really. No. No, I know. I've seen people, in television, mostly they walk up behind that.
Right.
No, I never did that.
Did you ever have any high-speed chases through town?
Oh, my gosh. I wrecked a couple cars. One of them, and I have to tell you this because it's the first time and only time I ever lied to a man I was working for. I'm going to tell you this, I don't mind using names in this one because nobody but me and G.I. Johnson involved, and G.I.'s gone.
Right.
I still miss him. But he had just got up, it was a 1964 Ford. And we got one that was the first time we ever bought cars through the state police. And we got the same car. We usually bought it from local dealers. They weren't souped up. But these Fords were hot. And one Saturday night I was working and G.I. was off. And he came by the office and was bragging about his car. And I said, man, you don't know what a hot car is. I said, come on, take a ride with me. He said, all right, but he said, it's got to be some kind of hot. So that was when all the hot rodders on weekends hung out down at the Horse Fellows. So we went on out of town, and just got to tell you where the health department was. I stepped down on the thing, at 15 I went. And when I topped that hill going out of town, I was getting close to 120. And when I got out to Gillum's Mill, I was still running about 100, and I turned around. I said, what do you think about that, G.I.? He said, well, it runs. I said, you ain't seen nothing yet. We started backfield, and I stomped that thing, and the peg went all the way over past. It was, I think they had 120 on that, something like that. Anyway, the fence posts looked like matchsticks. And, gosh, Mama's back now. We came over the hill coming back into town, and here was a carload of hot rodders, some old Chevrolet, turning around in the middle of the road, and here I come at 100 and some miles an hour, Phil. I stood up on those brakes, and up on the bank I went, and turned around like I was going back. Well, I knew I had to call Baldwin because his whole left front wheel had come in like this. I laid down 400 and some feet of skid marks. I knew I had to call Baldwin. I said, G.I., what kind of car was that? He said, damn if I know. I said, the only thing that I know is that I smell roses and saw dust. Well, I called John, and he said, what in the are you doing out here? I said, well, I chatted, here's where I lied. I said, chased a car out toward Woodbury, and he's running right fast. He said, yeah, but what did you chase coming back? That's what, all I had sense not to know. He should have fired me. He didn't. I got a good talking to, but I never played with a police car after that. But I have had some chases. I chased a bunch down on 21 night at above 100 miles an hour. But never bothered me at the time, a high-speed chase like that. But your gut sort of knocks up, and when you go home about 2 hours later, that's when it kicks in. In 1972, when I first took the job, it was I was on the 1st of May, I think, that I took the job. Well, the early part of the summer, the latter part of June, on into July, we had a rash of burglars, and I didn't know what the crap I'd go blind. We stood out there, staked out places. We spent all kind of overtime watching places, and they'd be hitting somewhere else. They hit churches, and finally, on toward autumn was on the way. And there was a black kid that worked down at the A&P, came to me and said, Mr. Amos, I seen something funny last night. And he said, what? I said, what? He said, I saw 2 white boys throw some stuff over there in the gully, right across from where Dr. Billows' office is. Went over there and I found a couple of hypodermics. Yeah, they had been in the doctor's office and broke in. And that finally broke the whole thing, the whole series. It lasted just about the whole summer of 1972.
Wow.
And we, like I said, we staked out, and everywhere we staked out, they hit somewhere else.
The whole drug explosion that happens from about then on.
Yep.
That probably worried you to death, didn't it?
It was terrible. We had it right about the top, the peak of the crack business, where they would get these little, and we've got a bunch of them, but never will forget, I had an old tall lanky boy working for me, and had a dealer down there on the railroad, and he bought him a pit bull, carried around in his arms when you went to the door. So boy asked me, he said, "Chief, what am I going to do if he had to put that pit bull on me?" And I told him, "No question, shoot him." And he didn't have to, I'm glad to say. But yeah, that was just a plain headache, the drug business. And the only thing we were catching was the lower end. We wasn't doing much with the dealers and that kind of thing. You'd catch somebody would have a little bit of it on them once in a while, but it was real small potatoes.
I remember one time sitting and talking to you, and you said to me, I've never forgotten this. You said, you know, Orange would be paradise if it weren't for the suicides.
That's the worst thing in the world to work, Bill, because it's bad enough if somebody's child or husband or wife gets killed in a wreck. But suicides, handling that with the families is one of the worst situations that I ever had to deal with. And I did have to deal with several of them over there during my time. I think one of the worst ones, the murder-suicide, was down at the A&P. The Friday after Thanksgiving. You remember that one, I'm sure. One of the employees down at the old A&P had a grudge against one of the others. And it happened one night, it was Friday after Thanksgiving, I've got what year. And he shot, one of them shot the other one, and then stuck the shotgun under his chin. I'll tell you one thing that really set me off about it, and you wasn't even involved in this, your occupation was, but was that murder-suicide I was telling you about. And the Charlottesville paper sent somebody down in a little Volkswagen at midnight. Some way they'd gotten the news, I don't know, because it wasn't in the 24-day coverage like it is now. But anyway, and they put in the paper that one of them, that they had shot at each other. And one of them didn't even have a gun. The victim didn't even have a gun. It was the guy that shot him. Well, when that paper came out, I had worked that night. I think I finally went home about 3 o'clock in the morning because it happened about 6, and time we got everything tied up. And next morning I was going to sleep late, and the phone rang. And I forgot who it was that called me. He said, "You better get up to the office. You got a whole bunch of people over there mad." My God, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, I dressed and went over there. And it was the victim's family. They had read this thing in the Charlottesville Progress where they had been shooting at each other. Well, I finally got them cooled down and all, and I called Charlottesville Progress. And I told them I didn't give a hoot what happened in Orange. From then on, don't send anybody down there to cover it if they were going to do it that way. But that's the one thing that, now I never had the problem with you. It was the same way with Duff Green when he was working for the, I could tell Duff anything I want to, and if I tell him it was off the record, it was off the record.
There was a time where a guy walked into PB Sports and bought a World War I era rifle and 2 bullets, and then went down to the Dairy Queen and pulled the trigger on himself at breakfast time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He spattered brains all over that place where the pastries was that time. And that was one that we never did find out why, because he was an out-of-town man.
Right.
And there was a woman I worked, a suicidal woman out there, that shot herself with a shotgun in the yard. So they were the worst. Wrecks and fatalities that way was one thing, but suicide something else. One of the finest men I ever worked for. he told it up front. He told me when I took the job as chief of police, he said, I want to tell you something. I don't want you acting like a patrolman. I don't want you acting like chief of police, but I love to arrest people. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I did. But he said, your job is to see that everything runs like it should run. And he said, if you mess up and you're wrong, I'll chew you out privately, but I will back you in public. And I said, well, I can't ask for anything better than that. And I worked for that man. Well, he retired before I did. And this fellow, Don Smith, came in there. And Don, I think, was just running his time out. But nowadays, it's just so much more technology and all involved. I mean, I look inside of a police car now, and it's like an astronaut. Like you're in a capsule. And we just had one old bike sitting up here. That was it.
A shotgun in the back.
Right. Yep. I missed it for a while after I retired. Not enough to go back, but I'd hear a siren go down the road here on 29, and the itch would start. But I don't regret any of it. But if it hadn't been for old man Jim Catata, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. I'd still be working. Under the retirement system they had when I went to work there, John Baldwin told me just before his mind went bad that after he retired, he was making $109 a month. Well, Jim Catata, he used to come down to the office when he was mayor and bump Sir Walter Raleigh tobacco off me. I always kept a can of it on the desk. And we talking all, and we had a incident there one night where a couple of men, both of my men that were in the wrong, they arrested this guy and just beat the stuffing out of him in the town. They threw the town, people did. Anyway, Jim was talking to him down there, and he said to him, you all are insured for false arrest and such things. As far as I know, we'd not. We had some of those policies with an insurance company out west somewhere. He said, you all don't have state retirement? I said, absolutely not. He said, well, no wonder you can't keep people here. Well, we went under state retirement then. He was mayor then, and he got on the ball with somebody. I don't know who, but anyway, we got retirement that we didn't have to worry about it when we got ready to retire. Put it that way. But no, I wouldn't trade any of it. I lost her in '89. Last 2 years she lived mostly on chemotherapy, and then the last 6 weeks or so was horrible. I prayed that she would be, and I felt guilty about it for a long time, Phil.
You should.
But I saw her, and I knew what she was going through. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, I did have feelings of guilt that I had, but I prayed that she could go along and be peaceful.
Yeah.
So, but you know, most men don't find one good woman a lot of times, and I found two.
Yeah.
Don't mean it's my charm, because I can rub people the wrong way. Jane had been dead about a year, and Eugene Crooken, remember him? That was her brother-in-law, Emily's brother-in-law. He was with the post office. He came by my office one day and asked me if I was interested in meeting new people. And I said, well, I don't know why not. Why? And he said, well, my sister-in-law just moved back here from Maryland. Emily had worked in Maryland with Safeway for years. And he said, I'd just like to meet somebody that you could trust. I said, well, I appreciate that. He said, well, I'm having a little cookout over my house tonight. Will you come on over? So I did. And I told her nice it was to meet her, this, that, and the other. And I got in my car and drove on home. And I don't know, I let things go on for a couple of weeks. And finally, I called out Charlotte, her sister, to ask for her telephone number. Well, I called her and came up here, I believe, if I remember right, and found out that I was supposed to bring her home the night. Well, hell, I'd been out of the dating game for 40-something years. But anyway, that's the way we got together.
You mentioned on the phone that you had a heart attack?
Yeah, it cancer and heart attack. I had both. I'm walking around there with 3 blocked arteries and taking a mountain of medicine. But at my age, Bill, the cardiologist told me after he told me the options I had. It was either open heart surgery or this combination of medicines. And had I been 60 years old instead of 88, I would have gone and had the surgery. But he told me later that he thought I made the right choice. And so far, it was on April Fool's Day in 17, 2 years ago.
Now the cancer was back in 2005?
I had it, yeah. It was colon cancer, went to the liver. And it was in the liver when they found it at stage 4. And you talk about a blessed man, a lucky man, whatever you want to call it. I had one of the best oncologists in the country, and he's since retired. And he told me, he said, I think maybe we can handle this thing. He said, I want you to stay on chemotherapy for a month or so and shrink the size of it. And said, we have a procedure called a nuclear ablation. I call it microwaving. They went in my ribs, between my ribs, and burnt that, as what the cancer was on the outside of the liver, which I was lucky, instead of it being inside where they had. But anyway, they did that, and that's been 13 years ago, this past August.
You are one lucky guy.
I am.
So what kept you busy between your retirement and
Now,
yeah?
I worked until 13.
Worked where?
Super Fresh in Orange, until they closed. This was after I had, yeah, it's about 2005, after I finished up with cancer. I went up to A&P and they wanted somebody to work part-time hours, and I worked there from, it was 2006. I worked there from 2006 until 2013 when they closed up.
What was the best day of your life?
Best day of my life? Probably when my children were born. I had some good days, but I think they would probably be the best. It was when the children were born.
That's great. And the worst?
Huh?
The worst day?
Oh my gosh. I don't like to seem morbid. I guess that was my wife died.
Yeah. So if you had a piece of advice to give the younger generation, what would you say?
Well, the first thing would be to lay off of these smartphones. Other than just tell them to be straight and be themselves, Phil, I don't know. Because it was Socrates, I think, that said that true wisdom was when you knew what you didn't know. And most of this generation coming on now don't want to even be around an old fogey like me. But, and those smartphones, I know that's a pet peeve of mine, but it was a piece in the, I believe it was Orange Review last week, about this, it's worse than driving drunk or just as bad. And it's the gospel truth. Now, when Emily takes me up to the doctors or where I'm going in Charlottesville, and as long as I'm not driving, I can see what's going on. And we'll go by these cars, and here they are sitting there like that, grabbing the wheel, and it's just ridiculous because you need every sense you got looking at the road when you're driving a car, especially this day and time.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's the best place I can give them. That's what I give my kids. And always try to be right and keep it that way.
Right.
And so far, I've been very, very fortunate. I raised 4 of them and haven't had a minute's problem. You know, I had to get one of them out of jail or that kind of stuff. I say I raised them. When I was working shift work, my first wife raised them. They wasn't their mother. But, so I've been very fortunate. No regrets. I always tried to treat people the same way that I'd like to be treated. And I don't know whether I was liked or not when I left Orange, but I do know I was respected. And as far as you liking me, I can care less, as long as, and, but I wouldn't change anything about my life. I've never been one that was trying to keep up with the Joneses.